So the columnar epithelial tissue, as I have said, that it has two roles. It has a secretory role by producing mucus from the goblet cells, but also because of the presence of the brush border, the microvilli, it has a role of increasing surface area for absorption. So let us see the structure of an absorptive cell. Structure of an absorptive cell. A single absorptive cell. This is its nucleus. And the mitochondria. Well, here we have microvilli. This is thin membrane. Apart from that, we have mitochondrion. And here we have a nucleus. Now, what are the adaptations? What are the adaptations of this cell? Adaptations of an absorptive cell. One, presence of microvilli, which are there to increase the surface area for absorption of nutrients. The second one is the presence of a thin membrane. The thin membrane reduces the distance across which the diffusing materials have to move. So the thinner the membrane, the rapid is the rate at which diffusion takes place. And finally, we have numerous mitochondria. These provide energy, which is required for active transport of nutrients. Remember that sometimes diffusion is to take place actively, where the nutrients have to move against their concentration gradient. In this case, energy is required, and this energy is provided by the mitochondria. That was simple columnar epithelial tissue. The second one is simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. This simple cuboidal epithelial tissue again, it is one cell thick. It is one cell thick. And the cells are cube-like. Again, these cells rest on the basement membrane. And these form parts of the digestive tissues, especially glands, such as we have pancreatic ducts, but also we have salivary glands. And the third form of a gland, epithelial tissue, here we have glandular tissue. This is a special form of an epithelial tissue that form glandular parts. And these glands may be either exocrine, I mean glands with the ducts, or they may be endocrine, the so-called ductless, the ductless glands. Well, in the alimentary canal, these glands secrete various valuable structures, valuable materials. These may include enzymes, they may include hormones, they may include mucus, and the like. So in the alimentary canal, we have such as a compound tubular glands. For example, we have gastric glands. These are located in the gastric mucosa or walls of the stomach. We have compound circular glands such as salivary glands. But we also have tubular structures that form the glands, for example, those of the crypts of Lieberkuhn. This is found in the intestines. All in all, you can see how the structure of the epithelial tissues can be related to the efficient working of the enzymes, of the digestive system and the alimentary canal as a whole. Now, having seen the structure of this, try this question. Show how the structure of named epithelial tissues relate. How the structures of the named epithelial tissues relate to efficient working of the alimentary canal. Show how the structure of named epithelial tissues relate to efficient working of the alimentary canal. Show how the structure of named epithelial tissues relate to efficient working of the alimentary canal. Now, my student, we have seen the structure of the epithelial tissue and how it efficiently affects the process of digestion. Now, let's switch on to the digestion. Along the alimentary canal. In other words, we look at the types and the sources of digestive juices. Well, the parts of the alimentary canal that are involved in the process of digestion include 1, buccal cavity, or simply an oral cavity. Second one, we have the stomach. And the third one, we have intestines. So A, digestion in the buccal cavity. Well, in the buccal cavity or in an oral cavity, digestion of food is subjected to two types. Digestion of food or breaking down of food is subjected to two types of digestion. The first one, we have mechanical digestion. Mechanical or physical digestion. This is involving the action of teeth on the food. As I have said previously, it has no effect on the chemistry of the food. It does not change the chemistry of the food, but rather it breaks down larger food particles mechanically, physically into smaller particles. The second one is chemical digestion. This is involving the action of enzyme. And the enzyme that is involved here is salivary alpha amylase. Its role is to catalyze the breakdown, the hydrolytic breakdown of starch into maltose. You can see here that there is a change, there is a chemical change from a complex carbohydrate, a polysaccharide, to a simple carbohydrate that is a disaccharide. Now, my Form 5 student, what is the digestive juice? What is the digestive juice in the buccal cavity? Well, the digestive juice in the oral cavity is a saliva. Now, what are the constituents? Now, let's look at the constituents of saliva. One, it is water. Water has got two roles. First of all is to activate enzymes, but secondly, to solubilize food. Apart from water, the enzyme, the saliva also contains mucin. This is a sort of mucus whose role is, together with water, it conditions the food into a slippery bolus for easy swallowing. The third chemical constituent is alpha amylase. Alpha amylase, this is an enzyme which catalyzes the hydrolysis of starch into maltose. It starts the hydrolysis of starch into maltose. The fourth component, we have lysozymes. These are antibacterial chemical substances that destroy bacteria which happen to contaminate the ingested food by simply destroying, by simply catalyzing the destruction of the cell wall. And the fifth component, here we have inorganic ions. These inorganic ions or simply electrolytes. The inorganic ions or simply electrolytes include ions such as sodium and chloride ions. Now, what are the roles? The roles of the two ions, first of all, to provide the best pH for proper working of salivary amylase in the buccal cavity. But secondly, chloride ions the chloride ions, these activate alpha amylase. So one is to provide the best pH for proper working of the salivary amylase, but also the chloride ions activate alpha amylase. I mean, alpha amylase is working in coordination with chloride ions. In enzymatic language, we call these chloride ions as enzyme activators, or simply coenzymes. Now, following digestion in the buccal cavity, the food, as I have said, is, by using tongue, is rolled into a spherical shape material. This is called a bolus, which is forced from the buccal cavity into the stomach through the esophageal pipe, I mean the esophagus. And this esophagus has its muscles, which contract and relax to force the food downwards, down the stomach. And this mechanism, this force which pushes the food into the stomach is called peristalsis. And the process of pushing directing the food from the buccal cavity into the stomach is called swallowing. My dear student, we have seen the chemical constituents or composition of the digestive juice in the buccal cavity, the role played by each, and we have seen what is happening to the end product of digestion in the buccal cavity, that is the process of swallowing. A study question. Define what digestion is. Explain what happens to a meal or to a starch food when this food is introduced in the buccal cavity. But thirdly, describe the components of digestive juice in the oral cavity and its chemical constituents. Define what digestion is, what happened to a starchy meal when introduced in the oral or buccal cavity. Then describe or name the digestive juice in the buccal cavity and state its chemical constituents. Well, my dear student, we have come to an end of our lesson for today. Remember to pass through all the questions that we have given you. Next time, we shall see the process of digestion in the second part, that is the stomach. Hope it will be an exciting session, so don't dare to miss it. Bye-bye.